I declare the spiritual Olympic Games of the third millennium open. To each of us has been given at least one event to excel in. What's your event? What's your event? What's your event? Each of us is both physically and mentally unique and spiritually special with God-given spiritual long suits. We all have wonderful, fulfilling spots waiting for us in the body of Christ, and we were called there from the beginning. Let's go to Colossians chapter 3. And in verse 15, it says, "And let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to the which you were also called in one body." We were called in one body, way from the beginning. So these long suits, God's been preparing for them for a long time. So you have a lot of backing when it comes to that. Let's go back to Romans chapter 12. Having then gifts differing. Isn't that fascinating to see that? We all have ministries in the body. We all have long suits and adeptnesses, and there's a place for us to fit, and there are things that we can do that no one else can do quite the same, and if you don't do them, you'd be surely missed. But anyway, now we'll go on in Romans chapter 12 to verse 9. Romans chapter 12 verse 9 is a pivotal verse in this next section of the book, because we learn from Ephesians in that love sandwich, that's how the body works together best, in love, in love. So now that we have these ministries, now that we know we have these long suits, and we are renewing our minds to who we are in Christ, yes, but also we are renewing our minds to who we are in the body of Christ, now we need to walk in love. So that's why in verse 9 of Romans chapter 12 it says, "Let love be without dissimulation." And these next verses have a set of specific instructions for those who are already busy, according to the proportion of their believing, effectually working their ministries. And it's a set of specific instructions on how we can keep our love genuine under all circumstances. It's real interesting. It says, "Let love be without dissimulation, abhor that which is evil, cleave to that which is good, be kindly affectioned one to another, with brotherly love in honor, preferring one another, not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing instant in prayer, distributing to the necessity of the saints, given to hospitality." It's real interesting. The word dissimulation in verse 9 is hypocrisy. Let your love be without hypocrisy. Now, in ancient Greece, a hypokritos was an actor. How many of you were in thespians in high school? Or do you remember, when they put on those plays in high school, they had the logo for the thespians? You remember what that logo was? It was the happy face and the sad face, right? Okay. And back in ancient times, the actors, when they would act, they would hold up a face, and they would speak behind this face, and then they would change parts, and they'd hold up a different face. And so it says, let your love be without the face, without hypocrisy. And this is real interesting because, there all have been times in our lives when we were at some fellowship and we felt that we needed to put on our fellowship face to be there. And I think we all can identify with that. Well, it says, let your love be without the fellowship face. Because we need to see who you really are. Because it says, abhor that which is evil and cleave to that which is good. Well, if you're not doing that, you might as well put on the face. Or be kindly affectioned one to another with brotherly love. Well, if you don't have that brotherly love for one another and you go to fellowship, you might as well put on the face. In honor, preferring one another. If you have your own hidden agenda, you might as well put on the face. Not slothful in business, fervent in spirit. Well, if you're slothful, if you're not applying yourself, we need to put on the face to hide it, right? Patient in tribulation, continuing instant in prayer, rejoicing in hope. If you're not doing that, you need to put on the face. Distributing to the necessity of the saints. If you are not apt to do that, you need to put on the face to hide it. Or give into hospitality. Well, God says, get rid of the face. Because we need to be able to work with one another in the body. And there are encouragers there. There are teachers there. There are merciful ones there. There are giving ones there in the body. How are they going to know that you have a need if you have the face on? You understand? Get rid of the face. We don't need to put on the fellowship face. Let your love be without the fellowship face. Because when we go to that fellowship, and there are all those wonderful believers there that all have their functions, and we're all working together, we can leave the face at home in the jar by the door. Okay? We can leave the face at home because there's going to be someone there that'll be the encourager. If you need encouragement and you don't have the face on, if you let them see you have a need and then they can respond, then we can all work together. You understand? See, that's what makes everything work. And we need to make sure that this list of things, we do these things so that then when we do them, we won't have to put on the face when we come to fellowship. We can have that trust for one another that when we come to fellowship and we have a need, we're not going to be ridiculed, we're not going to be belittled, we're not going to be condemned, or somebody said, just renew your mind, cliched to death, or something like that. That when we come to fellowship, someone there will walk in love and take care of our need, help us believe for our need to be met. You understand? When we have that trust for one another, that we know that the other people won't do those other terrible things, but that they'll walk in love, and we can leave our face at home. Isn't that wonderful? See, the love is what makes it all work together. We could go through all the other motions, and if we didn't have the love there, it would be plastic. It would be putting on the face. We need to leave the face at home and let our love be without the face, without hypocrisy. Isn't that something? This section is one sentence grammatically, and I have a translation on verse 10. There's a repetition in here of the preposition in, and I'll read it to you. Let your devotion be without hypocrisy, continually rejecting that which is evil and cleaving to that which is good. In brotherly love toward one another, always loving like a family. In honor, always forwarding or promoting one another. In diligence, not ever fearfully shrinking from responsibility. In manifesting the Spirit, always being fervent. In the Lord, always serving devoutly. In hope, always rejoicing. In cognizance of rewards. In mental pressure, always enduring faithfully till deliverance results. In prayer, steadfastly continuing with perseverance. In the needs of the saints, always sharing fully, ever earnest in the pursuit of hospitality. And that's so important, that pursuit of hospitality. It's no matter what, it says in the needs of the saints, always sharing fully, ever earnest in the pursuit of hospitality. And sometimes when someone comes to your doorstep, they have such horrendous needs. You understand what I'm saying? You've seen that. When you're in that situation that says, ever earnest in the pursuit of hospitality. You understand? Where they have such tremendous needs, well, you respond. Why? Because you have it in you. We have Christ in us. He had compassion. And that's what fired off many of the miracles, many of the healings. It first says he had compassion. And so we can't ever drop when it comes to hospitality. And that's what that fellowship in the home is. It's just such a wonderful place to come where we can have that wonderful love with one another. And so when somebody shows up in your door and they don't have their fellowship face on, and you see they have that need, then we can pursue that with hospitality. You understand? That's a wonderful fellowship. That would be a great fellowship to come to, wouldn't it be? You know, when they have the encourager there and the teacher there and the giver there and the server there and the leader there and the merciful one there, all functioning, all hot, all in love. That's a snapshot of what a fellowship is. It's a fellowship. It's a full sharing. It's a full sharing. It's a sharing what you and I have, but also it's a sharing of need too. It's a sharing of positive things, but you know, sometimes there are things that happen that are negative, right? Well, we all work together in those situations. It's a full sharing. Man, it's just so wonderful to see how it all fits. Verse 10 says, be kindly affectioned one to another. That word one to another is the Greek word allelon, A-L-L long E-L-O-N, allelon. This is another signpost word. If you study the word allelon all the way through the New Testament, you'll see place after place after place that talks about how we need to interact with one another in the body. It's fascinating. It's a signpost word that'll guide you all the way through that. But, you know, we need to pursue hospitality so our love is genuine. Now there's another section here beginning with verse 14, which covers another aspect of keeping our love genuine. Because, you know, we're in a body and it's available to have misunderstandings in the body. And it says in verse 14, it says, bless them which persecute you, bless and curse not. Bless them which persecute you, bless and curse not. It's available to have people that persecute you in the body. We're part of the body. There can be misunderstandings. And, you know, we're ready to steel ourselves against the world. We expect that from the world. But, you know, it really hurts when it comes from another believer. And this is very important to be able to handle, because it says, bless them which persecute you. Bless and curse not. Cursing is not in your repertoire. It is not a long suit of the Spirit. I know sometimes when something like this happens, you know, people they just want to speak that into being. But that tool is not in your toolbox. You can't do it. It's not an adeptness of the Spirit. It says bless them. Now, that doesn't mean you say bless you while they're pounding you on the head. Okay? To bless is the Greek word eulogeo. Logeo means to speak. You means well. What's the best thing you can speak in that circumstance? The word, right? That's what you need to speak. You need to tell them the word, because you're right there. You are in the circumstance. You can tell them that they're doing something wrong. It's off the word. You can tell them that. Okay? Bless them which persecute you. Bless and curse not. Now, verse 15. Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. Sometimes you just need to have empathy when there are misunderstandings in the body. Because sometimes when you see it from the other person's perspective, that will clear the situation up. See, we're all trying to make sure our love is without the face. Because if you've been dumped on, okay, and someone's persecuting you, you're apt to put on the face. So, leave the face at home. Rejoice with them that do rejoice and weep with them that weep. Have empathy. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Try to understand it from their perspective. Sometimes, if it's an unintentional thing, you'll see it. And that'll clear the whole situation up. Be of the same mind one toward another. Sometimes that will clear it up. Then it says, mind not high things, but condescend to men of low estate. Be not wise in your own conceits. Now, this mind not high things, but condescend. The condescend to men of low estate is a bad translation. The condescend to men of low estate should be busy yourself with humble things. Involve yourself with humble things. So, mind not high things, but busy yourself with humble things. Well, what's it talking about? Well, just a few verses earlier, in verse 3, it says, "For I say through the grace given unto me to every man that is among you, not to think more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as God has dealt to every man the measure of faith. For as we have many members in one body, and all members have not the same office." This is echoing that same thing. In other words, mind not high things. You know, when you've been persecuted, when evil has happened to you, you want to be judge and jury and executioner and everything else, right? That's minding high things, okay? Those are not your job description either, all right? Mind not high things, but busy yourself with humble things. What humble things? Your part in the body. You know what? Never let anything talk you out of performing your function in the body. Don't let anything stop you from doing it. Don't let any evil stop you from doing it. Just don't stop doing it. Because as you carry out your function, many times that's how you get healed. Many times that's how you get taken care of. Because you know what? It's a lot easier to steer the car when it's moving than when it's standing still, right? God's already working in you to do your function, so don't let anything stop you from doing your function. If evil happens in the body, don't let anything stop you from doing your function. That's what it's saying. Busy yourself with humble things. What humble things? Your function in the body. Immerse yourself in that. Don't let anything stop you. Be not wise in your own conceits. You know, when evil has occurred to you, sometimes people want to just roll up in a little ball and lick their wounds, you know, and think about all the terrible things that have happened and then, why did this happen to me? Well, it says, be not wise in your own conceits. Don't get introverted and draw into yourself. That's putting on a whole big fellowship face, right? People will never know what's going on the inside. See, in this context, in Romans chapter 12, this is talking about keeping our love genuine under this circumstance. Isn't that something? So, if that happens, don't let anything stop you from doing your function. Don't let anything shake you out of it. Keep your finger here, go to 1 Corinthians chapter 10. There's a wonderful verse here. 1 Corinthians chapter 10. That really blessed me when I was in the circumstance where I was tempted to stop doing my function because of evil. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13, it says, "There hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man." All right? It's not a special case. There's somebody else who has had this problem. They might even be at fellowship. They might have gone through it, and if you don't have your fellowship face on, they might tell you, you know what I did? I applied the word in this way or in that way, and they'll help you work your way through it. But anyway, there hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful. He's faithful. And it's tremendous if you do study the word faithful. God is faithful. He's the faithful God. He's not the other unfaithful type. He's the faithful God, 100%. God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted above that which you are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it. Now, are you good parents out there? Will you put your children in circumstances they can't handle? Would you? No, certainly not. Well, God's a much better parent than any of us could be, isn't He? Certainly. There hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, 100%, who will not allow you to be tempted above that which you are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it. Now let's turn that around. The very fact you are in a circumstance is ample proof that you can overcome it. Because if you were not able to overcome it, you wouldn't be in that circumstance. You understand? God is faithful. He's faithful. So don't be a deer in the headlights looking at what's happening to you. Look for the deliverance. God is faithful. It'll always be there. It'll always be there. You understand? So if evil happens in the body, don't let anything stop you from your function. God's faithful. There'll be deliverance. There will be deliverance. Just keep looking for it. And if you're in the ing category, that's the road to deliverance. It's right down that road. Keep on moving and working and learning and growing and applying, and you'll work yourself out of the situation. It's just so important to understand that. And after it's all done with, you'll be stronger than when you started. You'll be stronger, and the adversary shouldn't have done it in the first place, because now you're even stronger and you have a greater trust for God. And the same thing's true in the body. When evil happens in the body, it's an opportunity for strength. It's an opportunity to grow. Because you know what? When you fight for one another, you'll trust one another more, right? And when you have those misunderstandings and work your way through it, that builds trust, doesn't it? It does that in a marriage relationship. It would do that in the body too. It builds trust when you fight for one another. So fight for one another and build that. And when it's all done, you'll be stronger for it. Isn't that tremendous? See, it says, be not wise in your own conceits. Don't get bitter, because bitterness, when evil happens, it's like the cue ball effect, okay? The adversary starts the cue ball effect, and it keeps on moving, and then it hits you. Well, then what are you going to do? What are you going to do when evil hits you? Well, the cue ball effect stops with a believer with a renewed mind. You stop that evil because you keep on doing your function. And as you keep on doing your function, then it'll get taken care of. Isn't that wonderful? Really something. Because see, when we get hurt, sometimes people want to get bitter. They want to withdraw in on themselves and be wise in their own conceits, as it says there in Romans. But bitterness is, it has the ability to defile. And bitterness hurts the vessel which holds it far more than anything you could ever pour it out on. So don't get bitter if you get hurt. Just do the word. Speak the word. Okay? Bless them which persecute you. Bless and curse not. Now, it's going to go on here and talk about some other stuff, because this is a very important thing to understand in the body. Verse 17 that says, recompense to no man evil for evil. See, it's still talking about when evil happens. And this is not talking about it out in the world. It's talking about in the body. Recompense to no man evil for evil. Giving and receiving is still a law. So you don't want to get your hands dirty, do you? Sometimes when somebody does evil, well, what are you going to do about it? Well, do what the Word says. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. Okay, when you've been hurt, you want to manipulate. You want to try to get even with that person. Well, is that going to work? No. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. Verse 18. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Okay. We're all part of the body, and we need to do that. Verse 19, dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. It's not in your job description. See, this is all talking about the same concept, about making sure our love is genuine in the body. And we do all those things in that first section, and then when it comes to the circumstance where someone does evil, how do you handle that? Well, are you going to perpetrate it further? Are you going to be part of the cue ball effect? Well, there's a way that we can handle this. See, avenge not yourselves. It doesn't work. You'll just botch it up. And then you'll have the law of giving and receiving working against you. That's in God's job description. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says he. Okay? So don't try to get wrapped up in all that if evil happens to you in the body. Just keep doing your function. Just keep looking for that deliverance. It'll be there. God is faithful. He's faithful. Therefore, verse 20, if your enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Now, that doesn't mean you give him the old 1-2. It's talking about that Oriental culture thing where in the ancient times, the job of keeping the community fire in the town was circulated between house to house. And so when it was your house's turn to keep charge of the community fire, then you'd stoke it up that night. And in the morning, you would take the coals from that community fire and put it in this great big bowl and carry it around to every house and see if they needed an ember to rekindle their fire. And in the morning, in the desert, it's cold. But you'd be carrying around this big wooden bowl on your head, and you'd be nice and toasty warm. It'd just warm you with that. And so when we have an enemy in the body, it's available to have an enemy in the body. They're still brothers or sisters, but they may be enemies. What are you going to do? Be vengeant? That's not your job description. It says, therefore, if your enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing, you might warm him with your love. Maybe that's what it takes to put things back together. Because the whole goal is verse 21, be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. See, this is the third time that it talks about evil and overcoming evil. We don't reward evil with evil. We don't keep it going. Okay, our proper response for what happens when evil happens to us is critical, because otherwise we'll end up wearing the fellowship face, right? We'll be conniving all that stuff behind the scenes. We don't want to be that, because we need our love to be genuine, right? Because that's what makes the body work together. See, vengeance is God's job description. Take a look at Psalm 94. This psalm is so neat. I think all of us have been in this frame of mind from time to time. And it could have been written yesterday. When evil happens to you and you want to work that vengeance, well, don't do it. That's God's job description. Psalm 94, verse 1, it says, O Lord God, to whom vengeance belongs, O God, to whom vengeance belongs, show yourself! Have you ever felt like that? Lift up yourself, thou judge of the earth, render a reward to the proud. Lord, how long shall the wicked triumph? How long shall they utter and speak hard things, and all the workers of iniquity boast themselves? They break in pieces thy people, O Lord, and afflict thine heritage. They slay the widow and the stranger, and murder the fatherless. Yet they say, the Lord shall not see, neither shall the God of Jacob regard it. Understand, ye brutish among the people, and you fools, when you will be wise. He that planted the ears, shall he not hear? He that formed the eyes, shall he not see? He that instructs the heathen, shall he not correct? He that teaches man knowledge, shall he not know? The Lord knows the thoughts of man, that they are vanity. Blessed is the man whom thou instructs, O Lord, and teaches him out of thy law, that thou mayest give him rest from the days of adversity, until the pit be digged for the wicked. For the Lord will not cast off his people, neither will he forsake his inheritance, but judgment shall return unto what? Righteousness. And all the upright in heart shall follow it. When God works vengeance, the result is righteousness, not another Hatfield and McCoy type of retribution going back and forth and all this other stuff. When God works the vengeance, righteousness results. The cue ball effect stops. Wow. But judgment shall return, verse 15, unto righteousness, and all the upright in heart shall follow it. Who will rise up for me against the evildoers? Or who will stand up for me against the workers of iniquity? Unless the Lord had been my help, my soul had almost dwelt in silence. When I said, my foot slips, thy mercy, O Lord, held me up. In the multitude of my thoughts within me, thy comforts delight my soul. And that's what people are like when they've been hurt. You know, the multitude of their thoughts within them. It's just, why'd this happen to me? And all this stuff turning around. Why'd this evil occur? Well, thy comforts delight my soul. Verse 20, shall the throne of iniquity have fellowship with thee, which frames mischief by a law? What law? The law of giving and receiving. That's what frames mischief. They gather themselves together against the soul of the righteous and condemn the innocent blood. But the Lord is my defense, and my God is the rock of my refuge. And he shall bring upon them their own iniquity, and shall cut them off in their own wickedness. Yea, the Lord our God shall cut them off. Now this is really something. Because verse 23, that's that poetic justice, where he brings upon them their own iniquity, and shall cut them off in their own wickedness. Take a look at Psalm 9. I have in a footnote a number of places throughout Psalms and Proverbs, other places, where this idea of God's justice, where the evil's taken over by themselves, you'll see it. Here in Psalm 9 and in verse 15 is an example of this, where it says, the heathen are sunk down in the pit that they made. In the net which they hid is their own foot taken. Na, 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 na. Right? It's that poetic justice. Verse 16. The Lord is known by the judgment which he executes. Okay? When you see this, you know this is his justice. The Lord is known by the judgment which he executes. Vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord. You don't have to do it. You just keep doing your function. God will take care of this other stuff. And you know what energizes God taking care of that other stuff? When you're doing your function. When you're doing the word. Right? That's how you claim God's vengeance. You do your function. Don't let anything talk you out of it. You don't reward evil with evil. You just keep on moving. And if you have an opportunity to bless your enemy, you heap coals of fire on his head. If he's hungry, you feed him. If he's thirsty, you give him drink. Now, don't go out of your way to do it, but if he is, then if you're there, you understand what I'm saying? Do the word. Then God will take care of the vengeance category. You may never see it, but you may see it. And this is what he does. The Lord's known, verse 16, by the judgment which he executes. The wicked is snared in the work of his own hands. And then it says, Hegeon Selah. That's like slam dunk with a 360. Okay? Hegeon means worthy of memory. In other words, if you want to memorize anything, memorize this. Hegeon means worthy of memory. Selah means consider these words. And down there in the footnote, I have a whole list of other places throughout Psalms and Proverbs, a couple other places, where it lists this kind of justice. So don't try to avenge yourselves. It doesn't work. You can't make this happen. Only God can. And when this happens, it's poetic justice and the evil stops. You understand? It's not any more retribution going back and forth and ping-pong effect or cue ball effect keeping on going. Now, it's talking about, back there in Romans, this is talking about justice within the body. This does not negate secular justice. It has its place, especially when the conflicting parties don't recognize a godly leader's judgment, or if the injury came from an unbeliever. If you have to use man's justice, it's available, but everything has a cost, and you have to weigh it. And sometimes, in man's justice, the victim gets victimized over and over again throughout the process, and you have to count the cost and see if it's worth it. But, if the cost is great, or if the laws of the land are violated, and the parties won't reconcile, then maybe that's the only route to follow. But if it's in the body, and there is someone that you both recognize as an authority, well then take it to that person that you recognize in the body and work it out. Now, this whole thing to practically apply it, I think the greatest example of that is in the book of Job. Take a look at Job chapter 4. Job chapter 4. We don't let evil overcome us. We overcome evil with good. And in Job chapter 4, all those terrible things happened to Job. All that evil happened to Job. And of course, he recognized what had occurred, because in chapter 3, verse 25, he said, "For the thing which I greatly feared has come upon me, and that which I was afraid of has come unto me." You know, sometimes when evil occurs, you know why. Other times when evil occurs, you don't. All right? But he knew. And then in chapter 4, verse 1, it says, "Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, If we try to commune with you, would you be grieved?" Sometimes when people have something terrible happen in their life, you just need to be there. Right? Now don't say anything. You just need to be there. Just be a comfort. If they need something, they'll ask you, okay, when something really terrible happens. But see, Eliphaz and those guys, they were his friends. They came over. They wanted to be with him after this terrible thing occurred. And he says, verse 2, "If we try to commune with you, will you be grieved?" He should have stopped right there. But he went on and said, "But who can withhold himself from speaking?" And that's where he messed up. That's where they got all messed up. And they became those miserable comforters in the book of Job. And so, if you read in the book of Job, they persecuted Job. And what did Job do? He blessed them which persecuted him. He blessed them and cursed them not. In other words, he spoke the word to them. Now, if you read how Job spoke the word to them, he was very blunt, because they were very cruel in what they said. And so he replied in the same tenor. He was just straight to the point, and some of the times the paint could peel on the wall. He was that stark. But he spoke the word to them. He confronted them. He told them they were wrong. So if someone hurts you in the body, you tell them what they did. Okay, you speak the word to them. And because Job spoke the word to them the way he did, finally it reached the place where they couldn't say anything else. Remember that? Well, had Job not spoken the word, that would have never occurred. And later on, because Job spoke the word, they got delivered. He spoke the word to them. You understand? Now, take a look at Job chapter 38. God helped Job out. You know, he worked through that whole situation with Job because he's a faithful God. And there's a way out. He made deliverance available. And in Job chapter 38, verse 1, we'll see how God worked with Job in this terrible situation that he was in. Job 38, verse 1, it says, "Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind." You know what the whirlwind is? Sometimes, you know, when you're in the midst of the fray, when you're in the midst of all the evil, and that's what the adversary loves to do. He loves to get you in a tizzy. He likes to, you know, one thing happens and you react to it, and then another thing happens and you react to it, and another thing happens to it and you react to it, and you just get in that whole tizzy. It's just like a whirlwind. And God was able to reach Job even in the midst of all that situation, with the multitude of the thoughts within his soul, just trying to figure all this stuff out. And God was even able to reach to him out of that. Isn't that wonderful? So God spoke to Job out of the whirlwind, and he gave him the key. He said, "Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge?" And Job said, "Yeah, they don't know what they're talking about." You know, he just gave Job that little key. He says, "Gird up your loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if you have understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if you knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? Do you know? When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Or who shut up the sea with doors when it brake forth as if it was issued out of a womb? You know, and if you read through here in Job, God asks Job all these impossible questions. Why? Because, you know, when you've been hurt, you want to figure everything out. Don't you? Why? Because you don't want it to happen to you again. And sometimes when evil occurs, you can find out, you can figure out why it occurred. Job saw why. And sometimes when evil occurs, we can figure out why it happened. But you know what? Sometimes we can't. We can't. And Job was trying to figure all this stuff out, and he couldn't figure it out. And God finally said, and he asked him all these questions. Why? Because God was trying to show him, look, Job, you can't figure everything out. He was being wise in his own conceits. He was withdrawing, see? Getting in all those multitude of the thoughts. And God was saying, look, Job, you'll never figure it out. You'll never figure it out. Take a look at Job chapter 40. Job chapter 40, verse 1. Moreover, the Lord answered Job and said, shall he that contendeth with the Almighty instruct him? He that reproveth God, let him answer it. Well, sometimes that happens when evil occurs, right? You want to blame God, right? Well, it's not God's fault. It's not God's fault, so don't blame him. That's just going down the wrong road. You'll waste a whole lot of time. So don't do it. And so God got him over that hump. Verse 3, Job answered the Lord and said, behold, I am vile. What shall I answer thee? I will lay mine hand upon thy mouth. See, God helped him through that. God helped him through that. Once I have spoken, but I will not answer, yea, twice, but I will proceed no further. Then answered the Lord unto Job out of the whirlwind instead. He was still in this tizzy. Gird up thy loins now like a man, and I will demand of thee, and declare thou unto me. Wilt thou disannul my judgment? Will you condemn me, that you may be righteous? Hast thou an arm like God? Or can you thunder with a voice like him? All right, deck thyself now with my majesty and excellency, and array yourself with glory and beauty. Cast abroad the rage of your wrath, and behold everyone that's proud and abase him. Look upon everyone that is proud and bring him low, and tread upon the wicked in their place. Hide them in the dust together and bind their faces in secret. Well, if you can do that, then I will confess unto thee that your own right hand can save you. You know, when you've been hurt, that's what you want to do. You want to be judge and jury and executioner and all that other stuff, right? Well, God says, look, if you can do that, then you don't need me. Right? See, you see how God was working with him through all these stages, through all these steps? So don't try to play God. Vengeance is mine. I will repay. Right? Then take a look at Job chapter 42. You know, God just kept on working with him. He kept on working with him. And in chapter 42, verse 1, then Job answered the Lord and said, I know that you can do everything, and that no thought can be withheld from thee. You know, he finally got to the place where he could trust God again. Now, was this immediate? You know, are we automatons for Jesus or something like that? No. We're body, soul, and spirit. We're not all spirit, are we? Sometimes it takes time to work through this stuff because we're people. So God worked with him and worked through the whole situation. See, that's why it says pursue hospitality. Remember, if you're one of those people that's the encourager, or if you're one of the merciful ones in fellowship and somebody comes with this horrendous need, well, they're gonna have to speak some negatives to explain what this need is, right? Did Job speak some negative things? Sure he did. Well, what are you going to do? Say, Job, shut up? You know, renew your mind, Job? Does that work? No. You got to let people work through all this stuff. Well, God worked with Job. He worked with him and got him into the place where he could trust God again. Isn't that wonderful? Job chapter 42, verse 1, Job answered the Lord and said, I know that you can do everything, and that no thought can be withheld from thee. Who is he that hideth counsel without knowledge? Therefore have I uttered, I understood not. Things too wonderful for me, which I knew not. Now, remember that first question that God asked Job out of the whirlwind? He says, who's he that darkens counsel without knowledge? And Job thought, it was these other guys. That's what got him going at first. And all of a sudden he realized, oh, it's me. Who's he that hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore have I uttered, I understood not. Things too wonderful for me, which I knew not. Hear, I beseech thee, and I will speak. I will demand of thee, and declare thou unto me. When God spoke to Job out of the whirlwind before, those are the things that God told Job. Declare unto me, speak thou. Okay, gird up your loins and speak now. Now, Job is saying this back to God. I will demand of thee, and declare thou unto me. I have heard of thee by the hearing of the ear, but now mine eye seeth thee. And when God's worked with you, and when you've overcome evil, when you work through that whole situation, you're stronger for it. And you have a deeper relationship with God. You have a deeper understanding of God's goodness and His grace. And that's what happened with Job. He worked all the way through it, and he saw. He said, I've heard about you before, but now I see you. Wherefore I abhor myself and repent in dust and ashes. And it was so that after the Lord had spoken these words unto Job, the Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, my wrath is kindled against thee and against thy two friends, for you have not spoken of me the thing that is right, as my servant Job hath. So God took care of the situation. And so then, verse 10, the Lord turned the captivity of Job. When did this occur? When did this happen? When he prayed for his friends. Now that took some time. Those guys that said those terrible things to Job after that terrible stuff had happened to him, and they said, Job, it must be your fault and all this other stuff, and just hurt him terribly, some of the things they said. It's wretched. Well, Job finally got back to the place where he could overcome evil with good. Even those guys, those miserable comforters, Job was able to pray for them, and this is not just some prayer. This is genuine, heartfelt prayer. He finally got back to the place. It took some time, okay? But he finally overcame evil with good. He worked all the way through it and overcame evil with good. So God went to work then, and he got healed, and then it says, and the Lord gave Job what? Twice as much as he had before, and that's God's life insurance policy. That's what's available. That's what's available. If you do the Word, if you do what the Word says, and don't go off and try to be vengeant or try to do the evil to get back at people and all this other stuff, if you just keep on doing your function and don't let anything stop you from doing your function, when evil occurs, just keep on moving, God will deliver you, and you'll get back double what you lost. That's what the Word says. That makes it worth it. Isn't that wonderful? God takes care of all the stuff. He works out all the things that need to be worked out, and it doesn't keep on echoing more retribution back and forth. Justice results. And you overcome evil with good. That's how we do that in the body. So let's go back to Romans. And let's read this section with this new understanding that we've arrived at. See, this has been in there for centuries. And when you see how each word and each verse is part of a context and read it all the way through and understand some keys, then it makes sense. Verse 14, bless them that persecute you, bless and curse not. Just speak the word to them. Rejoice with them that do rejoice, and weep with them that weep. Be of the same mind one toward another. Mind not high things, but busy yourself with humble things. Don't retreat into yourself and be wise in your own conceits. Recompense to no man evil for evil. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lieth within you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Therefore, how do you apply verse 19? Therefore, if your enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. That's what the word therefore is there for. You understand? You want to claim vengeance? Then get the right attitude. If people need vengeance, that's God's department. God will take care of that. Okay? Don't poison yourself with that. That's not your job description, so don't do it. You already have a job description. You already have a function in the body. Well, don't let anything talk you out of it. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. See it? Isn't that wonderful? That's how we can even work through that situation and not have a fellowship face encrusted on us. We don't have to have that fellowship face on. We can work through all those situations, even this kind of situation, and still keep on doing our part in the body. Take a look at Matthew chapter 6. See, we need to have our love be without hypocrisy. And here in Matthew chapter 5, verse 43, is the first occurrence of the word love. Matthew chapter 5, verse 43. Jesus said, You've heard it, that it hath been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. And pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you, that you may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he makes his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love them which love you, what reward have you? Don't even the publicans the same? Even the Democrats. And if you salute your brethren only, what do you more than others? Do not even the publicans so? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. You know, and I would do my word studies of the word love, and I'd look up the first occurrence, and I'd see this, you know, and I get to verse 44, and it says, Love your enemies, and bless them that curse you, and do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. You know, I never understood this verse. I never did. It was the first occurrence of love, but I never understood it. Because every time I read it, it was like when you go into your shops and factories across the nation and you walk up to the counter, and behind the counter is this sign with the three guys laughing, and they say, You want it when? Remember that? You know, and I had this mind picture every time I would read this verse, and I said, Lord, you want what? You want what? You know, how can I do that? But I think that here, Jesus Christ is characterizing love in light of its greatest application, its greatest example. Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, and do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. I think Jesus read the book of Job. I think he understood that. And I think that this here is in the light of Job, where Job worked all the way through that. It wasn't immediate. It takes time. Okay? We're not all spirit. We have body and soul too. We have to work through all of that stuff, you understand? But ultimately, Job got to that place where he could pray for his friends. Well, that's what love is. I don't care how long it takes. Just keep on trying, keep on moving, keep on doing it. Stay in the ing category, and you'll get delivered, and then you'll overcome evil with good. You know what the best kind of vengeance is? Living well, right? The best kind of vengeance is walking as if it didn't happen. Just keep on moving. Don't let anything talk you out of your function. Then you don't have to have a fellowship face on under any circumstance. See, we're children of light, and we can overcome evil with good. All these verses in Romans work together. The connective words, the repetitions, the figures of speech, all function to set off each scripture and each section and show how it relates to the rest. We now can see the thought flow of this great chapter. And so we don't just renew our minds to who we are in Christ individually. We also need to renew our minds to who we are in the body of Christ collectively. And some of this stuff is really renewed mind work, right? You see that now. And so, since we are in a body, each of us have genuine God-given ministries to help bind the body together in love. And if we work together in love, we can work and overcome any conceivable situation, overcoming evil with good, one body minded. Bless you.
At this time, if you have 3 or more manifesting believers, you may have a receiver session.